What a place to actually start again. Session 3, and welcome. As I look at that combination lock, and I think about this particular journey that you're on, it is a journey where you do have to figure out some things, and you do have a specific series of numbers or series of actions that you must take in order for you to actually succeed in this journey. So I often like to look at the combination lock and use the combination lock metaphor because it's so true of how life actually works. If you have the right numbers and the right sequence of numbers, the right actions, the right sequence of actions done the right way, in the right order, at the right time, um, you can open pretty much any door that you want, as well as 100% reverse and engage in the recovery process. So, the slide up front is basically what today's session is about. We're going to get down into some real work and give you some tools that really are going to help you out in this journey. Again, providing that you use the tools, and the tools themselves are actually going to give you leverage so that the journey becomes a little bit more simpler, and it also becomes something that you have a greater influence on. So, um, as we talked about earlier, the recovery process, there's a difference between recovery versus quitting. Quitting never works. Recovery works because you grow and you change and you rewire the brain and you learn new techniques and you behave and you mature and you heal. That's a lot different than holding your breath, hoping, and quitting, or trying to quit, rather. So, again, it does come down to the combination for you, and it's a specific combination for you. We'll help you elicit what that specific combination is through the work that we do here. But that combination, no matter how general it is for everyone, it's always going to be specific to that person and specific to you, because your journey of getting here is specific to you, and it's personal as well. And so the recovery process, it's a journey, it's a road, it's not a race. And so quitting is a race. It's just basically what addiction is, which is, how do I get quick relief? And so what quitting is, it's a false idea that somehow you're going to get quick relief from what it is that you're doing, and what it is that you're doing is actually a relief process in and of itself that's not working for you. Okay. So how we got here is that, we built a bunch of stairs that are, how I call it the stairwell of toxicity, one brick at a time, one day at a time in some cases. This is a stairway. This is the addiction, that you've developed. Your stairway is different from someone else's stairway, as well as I just finished saying, the bricks in your journey is different from someone else. But nonetheless, people spend an hour a day. In that hour is a brick, and your brick is different from someone else's brick. But the bottom line is, over 10 years or 5 years or 20 years or however long it's been, you have developed these bricks. And so, again, I remind you about this workshop, and one of the reasons that this slide is here is because if you've done all this work against you, I want to encourage you to do what makes sense, which number one is to finish this course, because this course is just really the beginning. It's a first step, but it's a real complete first step. It's going to tell you what you need to do, kind of everything you need to do. But then you have to keep on figuring out ways to remind yourself about what to do and then expand on what we've told you. And that expansion that will happen continuously, it'll happen outside of this particular arena called the workshop. So again, this is a first step, and I encourage you to expand. And the reason why the encouragement to complete the workshop, as well as right now the encouragement to expand, is because this is the damage that you've done to yourself. And again, the addict inside of a person wants to somehow figure out and somehow cause or think that somebody's going to have a 5-minute conversation, and then all of a sudden you're going to transform your life, or 1 hour conversation, or they don't have to repeat anything over and over again, and all that kind of stuff like that. That's not going to get the job done because of the fact that you built this stairwell of toxicity that's unique to you. And because of this is a serious effort. You have worked at this. This didn't happen by itself. You picked these bricks up and you drag these bricks across the road. You know, just like when I talked about in my story how I used to have to get on my bike and ride to the store to get a magazine. Well, you had to get on your metaphoric bike of some sort to pick up the brick and then to carry the brick a couple miles and then to put it on the stairwell. You've done effort. You have to earn an addiction. It doesn't just happen. Even though it kind of shows up and you kind of get there, you still did work to get there. So again, I want to encourage you. You're going to have to do some work to get out of there. And the work is awareness, the work is shifting patterns, and the work is continuously shifting patterns and monitoring yourself through accountability, and to continuously develop better skills and to continuously exercise those skills and continuously learn better boundaries and to continuously exercise those boundaries. That's what recovery is about, and a little bit more. I can guarantee you that no matter how good of a job that I do, I'm not going to cover it all. That's why I say you've got to add this to whatever. And even if it was whatever, you still got to add whatever to this and then add more to it. So as I said, it's a journey. And for the adults, you know, if they're 40 years old and they've been into internet pornography for like 20 years or 30 years, you know, that's a 3 to 5 year plan where they really have to work, where they have to study, where they have to learn new skills, they have to heal, they have to learn how to behave, they have to deliberately do things to get better. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight. And see, the thing is the thing that makes it so hard to embrace and to grasp is it's the addictive mind that just wants it to happen like that. You want it to happen like that. And you want everything to happen like that. And the thing is you didn't build this stairwell like that. So the stairwell's not going to come down like that. Now, you can speed up the process by your commitment and your effort, but it's going to take some work because you did some work to get there. So what is pornography? It's basically something that you're doing with the purpose of creating sexual excitement. Bottom line. All right, forms of it shows up in digital, it shows up in social media. You can call that soft if you want. Call it what you want. Anything that you're using to stimulate yourself is actually pornography. And it's got to go away in order for you to be healed because of the fact that repeated pornography exposure has impacted you more than you know. And so what we're talking about as you look at that slide here is we're trying to give you some leverage here to see that, hey, this stuff really does have some consequence. This stuff really does weigh on me. Yeah, something is happening. Yeah, this is not free porn. Yeah, this is not just pleasure, okay? It's not. These are the prices that you pay when people engage in pornography usage, all right? And then once they get addicted, there's more prices to pay. And the weird thing is, like, when you look at some of this stuff here, when you look at this stuff here, when it blows up, depression and emotional numbness, this stuff here, some of this stuff explodes even more when people try to cut down, when they try to get off porn the wrong way. So again, that's why it's so important for you to get off of porn the right way. And some of the things that causes porn to be popular, and some of the things that causes it to thrive, is it's the novelty effect of it, and it's novel, but at the same time, one of the things you may not be knowing that goes on is that there's a Coolidge effect. And so, in simple terms, what that is that when you are exposed to something, naturally the brain wants to be exposed to more of it, but it also wants to be exposed to a variety of it. And so pornography feeds that part of us, and actually it overfeeds it, and it allows your reward circuitry in your brain to become hijacked. And then you have a continuous desire to be fed in this super normal stimulus. And so as a result of that, a lot of times, in fact, most of the time, people have ADA, ADH, ADD type symptoms, and memory and focus type symptoms. They have all kinds of symptoms. And as I said, it shows up differently in everybody. Sometimes it's dependent upon what somebody's story is. Sometimes it's dependent upon what somebody has been exposed to in the pornography that they choose to be exposed to, or the pornography that they've been exposed to. And then, of course, sometimes it's a combination of both. And so these are the neurochemicals. We talked about those before. You can look them up if you want. But, this is where it really becomes a chemical addiction. And it's a result of, as I have said in earlier sessions, it's a scientific experiment that you've done that isn't working. But this is real. These are real neurochemicals that get blasted into your system as a result of pornography use. If you want an explanation of these, you'll have to listen to an earlier session. I'll be moving on. So I've said before, it's not your fault, and it really isn't your fault, because of the fact that your brain has been hijacked. People have deliberately sought you because of the fact that there's algorithms out there, and you have a young mind, and they get people hooked when they have access to a young mind, and so on and so forth. But it is your fault if you don't do anything about it. But it's not your fault to get here. And so I say that to encourage you not to blame yourself anymore. I've said it, and I'll say it till the cows come home. One of the things that's true in with people with this addiction is that they are actually they have a phone problem. It is a phone problem, in fact, that comes with it. So it's like many addictions are actually one big addiction that contain underneath them, or legs, if you will, micro addictions. And one of the micro addictions, for lack of a better term, is that it's the way you handle your phone. Another micro addiction, I would say, is that you like to self-soothe. Another micro addiction that you have is that you don't have any kind of pain tolerance. And we can go on. So there's a lot of micro addictions that you have. Another micro addiction, unfortunately, that you have that we know is that there's lack of honesty. Again, anything that stimulates the brain sexually is pornography, sexting included. Again, that's an area that can get people in trouble, especially young people, because of the simple fact that you may be underage, so therefore your picture being sent is illegal. Or if you're just barely above 18 and you're talking to somebody below 18, them sending you a picture may be illegal. In most cases, that is a state by state thing. Tool of greatness is what you need to turn your phone into, as opposed to having your phone be a toy. Because as I said, you got a whacked relationship with your phone that needs to be changed. And if it's not changed, then you probably don't really have much luck in trying to do anything about your pornography habit. Quite frankly, you don't. They kind of go together. And the one is a micro addiction that kind of gives the other one legs. So again, if you can't manage the phone, which is one of the access points to pornography, or any other digital device, which again is access points, it's really going to be hard to try to deal with that. Even in the fact of where you're not looking at porn, but you just want to be on the phone and such, that's not really going to work, because basically what you're doing is you're replacing one bad behavior for another. It's just one that isn't as bad. But the thing is because you're not dealing with why you have a need to have a bad habit at all, it opens the door for you to bounce back to your favorite bad habit. So our lives are shaped, and one of the things that I'll say it over and over again is that this is in fact a life skills course, because of the fact that you have to be a different person than you are now in order to conquer what it is that you want to conquer. It's not hard math to say that if you weren't doing what it was that you're doing, or you weren't challenged the way that you're challenged now, okay, this is one person, and then the person you want to be, isn't that a different person? So again, you will be a different person if you're going to be recovered. And a lot of that is going to be shaped by what you say yes to and what you say no to. And at the same time, by what you don't say yes to and by what you don't say no to. So there you are. So it is a shift. And I think I talked about it last session, counting days. That's goofy. That's a goofy way, and it's a distraction, and nothing is really happening there, because of the fact that if one is counting days, then you're not doing what it is that you really need to do, which, if you look to the right, is new learning, finding direction, building stronger relationships, actively building a new life, a dynamic, purposeful, and beautiful journey. That's what recovery is. It's not this silliness of, I'm going to hope that I get through this day 1, day 2, day. No, see that's trying to quit. That's not going to work. And eventually your body is going to win, because that's not how you got here. You didn't get here, I'm going to watch porn. Let me count the day. This is day 1 that I watch. Day this. You didn't get here like that. So stop trying to get away from here like that. That's goofy. All right? You got to have an internal shift. And that word comes up, and that word will come up throughout this process. Identity. Who you are. Who you think you are. That at the end of the day is everything in this journey. I mean, everything. Because what has happened is your behavior has shifted itself. And you have an identity that's consistent with how you're showing up in your life every day and the things that you're doing every day. And so, as I said, this is about building life skills. This is about becoming a better person. This is about becoming a different person than you are and not beating yourself up with shame all the time. This is about reclaiming your work. This is an internal shift that happens. This isn't something that can possibly happen through counting days. Day one. This is day 0 again. I got 31 days. Come on, man. Again, I'm going to beat you up about that all day long. You got a whack relationship with your phone through that. Get up here, cat. I got a cat in here trying to steal the show. I'll bring him into the theater while I show you this next slide here. But this one is interesting. This one's interesting. Let me get this cat, since this cat wants to steal the show. I'll let him be part of the show. I'll get me some oxytocin. Okay, you shut up, cat. So again, when you hug these cats, or you hug a baby or something, that oxytocin that we talked about gets rushed up. And that oxytocin that we talked about in that other slide, it actually is it's the bonding hormone that actually happens when people have babies and such. The oxytocin, it's on that slide there. All right. So yeah, I'm gonna get me a little bit of this here while I was talking about that cat. Now let's go back to work here. All right. This one really shocked me. I'm going to let you go in a second, cat, because you were going to bother me. So hopefully all this oxytocin blast will allow us to allow you not to bother me no more, and then allow me not to get distracted anymore. But as you're looking at this slide, this is the one, and I hope you were looking at it, as opposed to, I guess you can't really see that cat too much. But anyway, as you were looking at that, the thing that really got me when I first got into this business, or first got involved in recovery, was that for everybody, like normal people, this is where you live. And for people that, when they become addicted, this window of tolerance actually becomes smaller. So what happens is they have a reason to self-soothe themselves, because this is what happens. They get all stressed out, and when they get all stressed out, they want to self-soothe, or something causes them to want to zone out, and they want to hide out, and then they self-soothe here. Well, see, the more that a person's addicted, the less that they can tolerate, and the more that they want to run from their current reality. So I'm telling you this because it's like a double whammy. It's a double-edged sword that works against you. And this is one of the reasons why it is a serious fight when somebody has an addiction, is because of the fact that they've rewired themselves, that they can tolerate less than the average person. They get stimulated faster than the average person. They want to run faster away from the situation than the average person. So that's you. And one of the reasons, this is one of the parts and one of the things that causes the addictive cycle to continuously go around in circles, is that this window of tolerance is smaller. Now, I tell you this not to scare you. I tell you this so that you clearly understand, hey, you got a war that you're dealing with. This isn't something like, once again, holding your breath and counting days. This is a war that you have to beat. You have to beat and learn how to expand your window of tolerance. And the way that you learn how to expand your window of tolerance is that you learn how to regulate yourself better. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. That's learning how to calm your emotions down, to stimulate yourself when you need to stimulate yourself, and to calm yourself down when you need to. That's a little bit more example of regulation, but that's something that's missing, and that's something that you have to learn how to do, something that you have to pay attention more to yourself, because people that are part of this journey, real simple, they react to things more quicker than other people. You know what I'm talking about. I don't need to preach that to the choir. Now, here's one of the reasons why we talked about this last session. If you have a need to go more into depth with it, that's not that hard. Very basically, all you need to do is look at the older session. So there's 3 factors that come to play in sexual addiction, because pornography is a form of sexual addiction, period. It's the lowest level of sexual addiction. Let's get real and call a thing a thing. All right? Opportunity, trauma, and attachment. These are 3 factors that come to play, and how these factors showed up have something to do with a person's addiction. And that's kind of a hint to parents, actually. Sometimes parents actually look at this type of thing. If the kids don't have any opportunity, then they can't do it. And one of the things I've said in the other sessions, and I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on this one today, is that opportunity is the fuel of toxicity. If you look at anything that's toxic, if you look at anything that's negative, if you look at anything that's bad, you're going to have opportunity. So if you can squelch, eliminate opportunity, it won't happen. Opportunity is the breath of toxicity. And you can put my name underneath that one. Opportunity is the breath of toxicity. So trauma does play a role. It is, I would say that trauma is it's the fuel or the heat. Trauma's the heat. Trauma's the heat of this fire called addiction. You know, did something traumatic happen? Did something you don't like happens? That's part of trauma. Is there some family drama? That's trauma. Is there school drama? Did you move? Things of that nature. That's trauma. What is your connection with family? What kind of upset have you had in your life? And sad to say, this is a fuel. Or did I say fuel or heat? I get twisted up between trauma and attachment because I'm kind of making this analogy up. But I can guarantee I don't get confused when it comes to opportunity. Opportunity is the breath. So when you come to attachment is like, you know, the need for attention, how somebody feels, how somebody felt, how do they feel loved? Do they feel welcomed at home? This kind of thing is to what their level of attachment is. And there's a whole, you can go 30 minutes to really understand something called attachment theory. But to simplify it, if you have somebody that really feels that they're connected in family and all this stuff like that, you know, that person really is not going to fall under the addictive game too much. It's usually lesser amounts, or that person that has that warm, fuzzy environment, but they just don't see it, because sometimes it's about perception. So Those are the things that fuel the addiction: opportunity, trauma, and attachment. And that's part of how you got here, and how that aligns itself, and what are the components of it, and this and that. That's part of what's individual to you. But this is how you got here. And as a result of a traumatic and emotional state, people that have a bunch of trauma, is that they tend to develop a bunch of shame-based beliefs. And these shame-based beliefs come into play when they try to pursue the journey of addiction without any kind of guidance. They develop avoidance patterns as well. And that's where the numbness factor comes, and the development, and the proclivity, the desire, and the repetitive patterns of self-soothing come because we need to numb. Opportunity. That's as I said, it's the fuel. And one of the things that you can do is to take the fuel away by taking the opportunity away. So, as I said in the earlier session, the big boys in this game, the doctors and such, will tell you over and over again that, again, you may sit there and think that this is some kind of bad habit or something. When a person gets addicted, it's something that's a little bit bigger than that. And what they will tell you that gets developed, I don't know if it was going to exist before the usage, or is it just because of the usage? It doesn't matter. And in some cases, it's both. And once again, like anything else, it's individual. But what the big boys will tell you is that at the end of the day, the pornography use, which, as I said, is a form of sexual addiction, it's at its core, it's a developed intimacy disorder. And so, as I said, I don't know if the intimacy disorder comes because people don't need to connect because of the fact that the oxytocin gets released through their behavior so much that they don't need to connect. See, because some of the behavior that happens in the addictive process is supposed to happen in the natural process for other reasons. And so all this behavior that we do out of the addictive process, this behavior, the things that we do, we were actually supposed to do, as I said before, but we're not supposed to do them the way that we're doing them. And that comes into that big word that I brought up a session ago called sexual integrity, which most people don't understand that, would have no idea about that. And that's probably one reason why they don't have that, and probably one reason why they're not keen to things that interfere with that. So last session, we talked a lot about boundaries, but again, it's such a beautiful thing, such a beautiful tool in this process, having and living by boundaries. And this is such a great picture of what having great boundaries is, because that's like one of the biggest tools in this process of recovery, is boundaries, and learning to rely on boundaries. And so what happens is, like, you can use boundaries to grow. Maybe right here is where you need to be. But see, if you have a boundary here, then your boundary gets here, then your boundary gets here, and then your boundary gets here, and then your boundary gets here, and then they get here and here and here and here. Boundaries can actually support you in getting again, where it is you want to get to. So just look at the slide and really like embrace the idea that when you make one good decision, many times you make tons of decisions. And the nice thing about making tons of decisions in one is that you don't have decision fatigue. And number two, you don't have to worry about making silly decisions. So again, if you can think of boundaries as something that's going to help do some heavy lifting for you and to help you prevent decision fatigue, because the quality of your life is really going to be determined by the quality of your decisions. So if you make a boundary that supports your highest good once and hold it for ever, it becomes very easy, and it takes the stress out of your life, as we talked about all session, last session. So if you need more about boundaries, go back to last session. So again, get used to these particular times in your life, because that's when you're vulnerable, as we talked about before, and it's important to become aware of these. Once again, recovery it's a journey of awareness, and not being unconscious. It's a journey of awareness and intentionality, and not randomness. And so when you're hungry, angry, tired, and lonely, you're actually very vulnerable. I added more to it. I felt that when you were bored, because of the fact you have great opportunities, these are vulnerable periods when you're hungry, when you're angry, when you're lonely, when you're tired, and when you're sad. And you can also put stressed right there. I've also felt that the two areas that people need to master is these two areas: bored and stress, bored and stress, bored and stress, bored and stress. If those are actually going to be your enemy, especially once you get some supremacy over your habit, once you start to use some of the techniques and you start to feel good about yourself and start to have some gaps in what's going on, when you're bored and when you're stressed, those are going to be some times that are going to be of serious concern for you. And so addiction capital is what is the opposite of what we want to talk about really at the end of the day, because we like to talk about recovery capital. But you have addiction capital, and that's just basically stuff that's working against you. Internal factors like trauma, negative core beliefs, untreated mental health issues. Then there's social factors that you do, social factors going on, isolation, relationships that enable you. There's certain social circles that you may be in that actually encourage this kind of behavior. Your environment sometimes can play a role. This slide, again, we love this one because nothing changes until something changes. And that's just something to think about as you think about changing this. Nothing changes until something changes. And you should never even approach change without approaching that something's going to change with change, because nothing changes until something changes. This is a very key point in this recovery process, is really learning to master your morning, learning to master your start. I've said it. You can look at the slide. I'm not going to talk about this so much, but I've said that it's very important to not use your phone the first part of the morning, because if you can prevent doing that, then you can prevent being hijacked. If you don't need to use the phone, then don't use the phone. And also, the less that you use the phone earlier in the day, the better that you can focus on stuff that's important. And every time that you commit to a micro discipline called, doing something better with your phone, that actually supports other areas. One little discipline adds to another discipline somewhere else. One breaking of a discipline adds to a breaking of a discipline somewhere else. So, yeah, you need to break the cycle, commit to a reset period, again, to allow yourself to heal. Some people like the 90-day challenge model. Some people like 30 days before you get yourself ready. I'm not talking about counting days. I'm talking about what is your structured break, what is your structured period. I didn't write that slide, so I'm going to kind of take myself out of that one a little bit. But the stuff that we're going to talk about later is identifying triggers and practice awareness, not guilt. One of the things that happens now is like you do something, I feel, I'm not this, I'm not that, all that kind of shame talk. What we want to teach you to learn how to do is to learn how to not do that anymore. Just practice awareness. Practice, hey, this is what I'm going to do next time. This is what I'm going to do next time. That should be like a sentence that comes out of your mouth like 2,000 times in a week. And even now, at my age now, comes out of my mouth at least 100 times, or at least, thinking in my head, at least 100 times in a day almost. I'm not counting it, but it comes up a lot. I don't do shame. I don't do guilt. I don't do any of that. What am I going to do next time to make this thing work? All right. You're going to learn how to build healthy coping mechanisms. That's what this journey's about. All right. There's support teams in there. This is part of your support team. But there's people in your life. There's people, safe people that can help you develop safe people. What are safe people? Safe people are people that know what they're talking about and can help you. If they don't know what they're talking about and you hear them keep saying, I think, they don't know what they're talking about. Okay? You need to be with people that know what they're talking about. That's people who don't do this and people who have gotten over doing this. That's a clue. So, the next 10 slides, I think, I don't remember the order. It doesn't matter what the order is. But they're about things to do. These are tools. And I forgot to talk about this in the beginning. If you're not willing to look at these videos over a couple times, I think that's one thing that's missing, because it's kind of hard to learn all of this stuff all at once. If you're not willing to do that, that's part of the journey. That's taking away from your likelihood of succeeding and really ridding this from your life forever. See, I know for a fact if you do everything that I put out here for you, you're going to win. I know that for a fact. But if you try to con yourself, cognitive distortion, which was that big word we used last time, it's not going to work. So I don't want you to do that. So we're going to talk about some things that you can do and put all of this stuff in your arsenal. But one of the things that you can put in your arsenal is bring a notebook and take notes as we're doing this. You can't really learn all of this stuff passive. And the reason why I keep saying about notebooks, because you may not know this, but you may know this because you know everything. If you take notes when somebody's talking to you, your retention rate almost jumps up to 50%. Just by taking the notes, the amount of importance stuff that you retain actually jumps up to almost 50%. If you take notes and you're talking to yourself and taking notes and talking back to me, and engaging in the actual conversation, if you can do that, and I'm not talking about this, I'm just talking about facts. If you engage and talk to the speaker, engage and talk to yourself and take notes, it's like 80% retention of what is important that's being said. So that's why I would encourage you to, moving forward, take notes of anything that's important. So if you're not being addicted is important to you, take notes. So here's some things to put in your bag of tools. I've got like 120 tools that I'm getting ready to throw at you. Things that are going to help you out. I think you see that, but let me just run it down real fast. Wait 10 minutes before you do anything. You can always wait 10 minutes. Leave the room before you do something. Put the phone down immediately. Put the phone in another room. Leave, move, stand somewhere else. Go where people are. Turn on the lights. Open the bedroom door. Get off the bed. Stop being alone with the screen. Take 10 breaths. Splash cold water on your face. Walk outside for 5 minutes. Drink cold water. Do 10 push-ups. Do 10 squats. Something that's not on there. Make a sandwich. Jog in place for a minute. Walk outside for 5 minutes. Pace in a room instead of scrolling. You know, do something different. Call somebody. Text somebody. Call a parent. Call a mentor. Go and watch a video. Sit near family. Go to a common room. Ask yourself to hang out. Stop isolating. Shut the laptop. Close every tab. Log out of social media. Unfollow these goofy accounts. Turn off the autoplay. Put the charger outside of your room. Put your phone outside of your room. Keep your screens outside of the bathroom. Delete the apps that are feeding the edge. Use a blocker app. Don't rely on it. Turn off your Wi-Fi. No phone in the bedroom. Don't lie to yourself with that cognitive distortion. No one just look. No searching of names or images. Don't check your history for old saved content. No testing of your self-control. You don't need to test yourself. This isn't a game. This isn't an experiment. This is an intentional recovery process. Now, some boundaries you can set for yourself. No late night internet. No private browsing, those of you that use a common computer. No headphones when you're triggered. Take the headphones off. Okay? And the thing is whenever you're clowning around, you're not doing your business. You're not handling your life. So handle some chores. Clean your room. Make up a bed. Wash some dishes. Take out the trash. Organize a desk. Read a book. Work on a hobby. This is stuff that you can do. You know, this isn't like holding your breath, man. This is like make your life better. You know, and these are things that like fill in the gap. This is big, huge stuff, what you see on this next slide, because these things are actually releasing of your creativity. And this area here releases dopamine, my friend. This area here, you can get off over here a little bit, but you can get off the way you're supposed to, quite frankly, a lot. All right. And playing a guitar, you know, that playing, I'm not talking about a guitar. I'm talking about an instrument, period. A lot of people, when they get into negative behaviors, they drop things that bring them natural joy, like playing guitar, drawing stuff, building things, doing puzzles, practicing skills, riding bikes. And by the way, exercise of all sorts is very, very, very good for everybody on this journey. It's good because it stimulates different things. It creates endorphins. It also gets that dopamine going on. And then you never know who you might see. You can make those connections and get that oxytocin going on. All right? Daily rules, boundaries to protect you. Boundaries can be things that you don't settle less of. Boundaries can be your standard. So again, stay off the junk content. Start evaluating the content. what is this doing to me? Does this count? Do I really need to know about this? Do I really need to be on this social media? Do I really need to do this? Plan tomorrow, tonight. Stop doing random. Get some sunlight. Stay around healthy people. Tell the truth to yourself fast if you slip. Okay? And repeat, leave the room and replace. Give yourself some physical pressure. All right? This isn't about abuse. This is about giving yourself some physical pressure, because this isn't a one-faceted situation. This is a multifaceted process. This is a multifaceted addiction. You're fulfilling a whole bunch of needs in an unhealthy way. So we have to disrupt some of that unhealthiness. Different ways that you can disrupt this is by what you see up there. Run up and down stairs, do some jumping jacks, do some push-ups, do some breathing, hold some ice in your hand. Some people like cold showers. Some people rely on just, one or two of these, and that's their whole recovery strategy. I would say no to that. I would say you need a whole recovery strategy. As you can see, we're already up to 136. So just thinking that one is going to do it and having one in your toolkit, no. You need to have tons of them. That one's kind of repeated. We talked about these earlier in another session. This one here, I just want to remind you about. It's very good, because I don't know if you did this since we last had a session, but if you've got your screens in a private position, that makes it easier for you to do clown behavior. If your screens are public, then it makes it less easier for you to do clown behavior. Okay? And so one of the things that you need to learn how to do is you need to learn how to, as you're paying attention to that a little bit, you need to learn how to watch patterns. So it's always like if you said, like, as we were talking about that addictive cycle, and again, go back to the other session if you need to learn about the addictive cycle. We're not talking about it this time. But if you notice in the addictive cycle, as a person is preparing, there's like 14 different things that you're doing unconscious in the preparing phase that you can actually disrupt and stop, and then interrupt the pattern by doing something that we have right here. But that's only going to happen is when you become deliberate and when you understand that you've crossed the boundary. And once you've understood that you've crossed the micro boundary that comes before another boundary, again, we use the traffic light. And the reason why I have an orange with the traffic light is as soon as I know I've hit the yellow, now I'm going to shift myself. And then if I catch myself in orange, now I got to leave the whole house. Okay? So you can look at the slides. I'm going to be quiet, get me a little sip of coffee. And if you like, feel free to take the time and screenshot those particular slides. You do have my permission to screenshot only the last 20 slides. But as you look here, these are some of the things that help you. Now, what I find is that this particular strategy here is another one that I find sometimes people that are uninformed, they want to rely on these as being their only strategy. But more so often, I'm speaking specifically of blockers. And I don't think blockers specifically and only blockers are a good strategy. So again, review your device settings. I have mine at adult settings. delete hidden accounts. If you have to hide it, delete it. That's a good sign. If it has to be hidden, delete it. Remove apps that lead you down the same road. You don't have to be on certain apps. And again, I say as somebody that's looking for the best for you, if it's really important for you to have freedom because you don't like the fact that you feel chained. If that's important to you, then making not being on Facebook or Instagram or whatever site that you think you have to be on, making that not important has to be important. Again, if it's important for you to recover, then non-important things need to be in their position as non-important. Because I don't know if you've ever heard about it, but there's a story called Feeding the Wolf, as you're looking at that slide. And whatever wolf gets fed the most, that's the wolf that wins. So if you feed recovery wolf, it'll win. But if you feed the wolf of addiction and doubt, it'll win. And so this whole process is about feeding the wolf of recovery. So yeah, one of the things that's, and I'll slow it down on this particular slide. This is so important because we talked about awareness and intentionality, and being a general and being a manager of your life. And these are the tools that the manager uses. Because what a manager does, what an executive does, and you're an executive of your life, whether you know it or not, what an executive does is he gathers good information and then he makes good decisions, or he uses good boundaries called rules, policies, and procedures to make good decisions for him. So trigger awareness is part of the data collection process. Trigger management is part of the executive function of recovery. So you need to know what it is that triggers you and how you're triggered and when you're triggered, so that you can manage how and when you're triggered. And you can prevent being triggered in the first place. And once you understand that you are triggered and that this is a triggered area, you can also understand and realize and be aware of what's going on so that you can actually choose another route rather than the route of being self-soothed. See, if you understand that, oh, I'm being triggered, then you can perhaps remove yourself from being triggered and then default to something that interrupts and perhaps do something that fulfills, as opposed to staying and being triggered to the extent that your resistance muscle, because resistance is a muscle that ultimately is going to fail. So if you're not aware of your triggers, and if you don't prevent your triggers, and if you stay triggered all day, whatever kind of discipline, whatever kind of management, whatever kind of self-control you have, whatever kind of individual power you have, it's going to break because you ain't all that. So that's why you have to prevent triggers and learn to manage triggers and learn to be proactive to triggers and learn to have boundaries on triggers and learn to have strategies on how to respond. Because again, one of the things that even though you may only have a certain threshold of trigger management, that certain amount of threshold is enough if you can learn how to respond more appropriately to a trigger. And one of the things that you might want to put in your little thinking cap is to learn how to turn lemons into lemonade as much as you possibly can. So that's just basically taking something bad and turning it into something good. So you get triggered, and then and so okay, you identify that you're triggered, and okay, hey, I'm going to manage this trigger management. I'm going to manage this triggered situation by removing myself. And then I'm going to do some chores, and then I'm going to kiss my mom on the cheek, or give my girlfriend a call, or do something nice for somebody. You see what I'm saying? That's a whole lot better than being triggered and triggered and triggered and triggered and triggered and triggered and sitting there and holding your breath and being triggered and triggered. Oh, I don't know. I'm about to relapse. Oh, I don't know. Oh, and all that kind of goofy strategy like that. Okay, it's what we're trying to get you to do, because that hope and hold your breath, man, that ain't working. So we got some scriptures for you, scriptures to interrupt the pattern. Boom. Put it on the card. There it is. Bam. Use one. Oh yeah, this is something that is so integral in this recovery strategy. That line at the bottom there, that's so key and essential. And that's why all of this stuff is thrown around. Because what happens is all this stuff that we've been talking about, all that we're doing here, is we're stacking steps on top of another. And what we're doing is we're stacking steps that are going to outstack the steps that we had in that other step picture. Okay? So again, some chores. And you can think about more. It's just useful tasks. These are just memory joggers, if you will. This is stuff you can go out and do physically. Go out and take the dog out longer. Go outside longer. Go shovel snow if it's wintertime. Cut the grass. Take a shower. I don't really like hitting a punching bag, but or a pillow workout. Give me a break, man. I didn't make these slides. And again, we saw this one. Wow. That's come on, man. We're not that young. But this one's pretty good. So the thing about model kits and Legos, and I get the point, is that requires a lot of patience. And that requires you not being so bored. And that doesn't have a lot of excitement to it. And one of the things that you have to learn how to do, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'll say it 20 times because you need to hear it again. You need to get uncomfortable. You need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Being uncomfortable, I'm uncomfortable. You need to be uncomfortable being uncomfortable. You need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And the thing is as long as you're uncomfortable and you're seeking self-soothing, you'll continuously be addicted. You understand? See the difference? Uncomfortable seeking self-soothing versus comfortable being uncomfortable and handling the situation until I get comfortable again. Yeah. Here's some creative things. Draw, build logos, Legos. Practice some photography. Take some decent pictures. Use your hands. Cook or bake something. Play that guitar, man. You don't have a guitar, play the air guitar. Probably shouldn't have tried to sing. The thing that we want to build into your consciousness, and that this is why that slides here, is that we don't want you to focus on, and this is a good thing in life too. We don't want you to focus all on your mistakes and keep beating yourself up about what you did bad and all this silliness. We want you to get, and this is a muscle that we want you to build. And the muscle is constantly, what's your next right move? What's the next thing that you need to do? What is the next right move? What is the next right thing to do? Because that's what you need to do. The next right move. You don't need to worry about, no matter what. What is the next right move? You've actually done the next right move by staying here. When we're finished, the next right move, just so we're clear, the next right move is finishing this. All right. And then what is your next right move after that? And then what's the next right move? That's what you need to focus your whole life on. And that, I didn't make this up. That came from a friend of mine named Don. And his whole life philosophy, and he did a lot of wonderful things in life. He's a hero. I'm not going to make this about Don. Don's a very special guy. And that's what Don was all about. What's the next right move? I even made a song that I'll make available to you, probably at the bottom, based on that. Next right move. I'll give you a link. So accountability is an area that gives us a lot of strength in this. And if you're just sitting at home watching this and not in a group, and you don't have an accountability network, you have to rely on self-accountability. And self-accountability is a good deal, because that's you reporting to yourself and looking at the results and looking at the feedback. And again, taking action and based off of the feedback and a recommitment based off of what you saw. Now, the type of accountability that we're talking about is when you bring people into it. When you have people that, you talk about, you share where you are, how you feel, what's going on, how you've been challenged, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's the caliber of accountability that happens in groups and by having people that are supporting you and by having buddies in your life. And that's what happens in a recovery process when you really have people around you that are actually growing and not just trying to hope and figure it out. That's your support team reminding you again. And your support team is part of your accountability network, or can be part of your accountability network. The rubber band is an added physical thing that you can do at certain times of addiction, not to be sadistic to yourself, but to kind of pull as something that shocks you when you say, something to wake you up. Hey, recovery is a journey. Boom. I got to build up a new step. Boom. My recovery is worth it. Boom. Let me go walk the dog. Whatever it means, you can make it mean a lot of different things. All right. Yeah, this behavior has really had a tremendous impact on your destiny, a tremendous impact on your identity, and a tremendous impact on how you think, how you behave, and what you do. And that's why the recovery process is so, so, so important. It's actually caused you to be more de-human. It has in more ways than you realize. And therefore, that impacts the quality of relationships that are available for you. And as I discussed earlier, it does impact your relationships. And as I said, the big boys. When I say big boys, I'm talking about the researchers of way back, of right now, Jake Porter, Eddie Caparucci, Patrick Carnes, etc. Those guys say that it becomes an intimacy disorder. So I'm going to say that it's an intimacy disorder because it's an intimacy disorder that can be reversed. And so it affects your relationships, and it makes people become selfish because it is a selfish process. How can I fulfill myself? That's what it's about. And because you are engaged in something that fulfills you to a tremendous degree, that creates a disconnect that breeds itself ultimately into an intimacy disorder. So, accountability and breaking the silence, it reverses. You have to trust the process, one day at a time. You have to learn to develop positive sexuality, which is based on these things, and not just pleasing yourself. Because what happens when you're all about pleasing yourself is you forget to treat women like they're your mother, grandmother, sister, aunt, and someday how your daughter would want to be treated. This is how women are supposed to be treated. And people that do high levels of pornography use, somehow it gets whacked for them. And it impacts their dating. It impacts their future marriage. And in some cases, I feel that people are actually destroying their marriages before they even exist because of their warped expectations that they have. They have expectations that are warped because of the fact that pornography has a lot of fantasy into it, and people start believing the fantasy, and there's a gap between fantasy and reality. And there's a gap between fantasy, education, and entertainment, and they all kind of get mixed up with porn. And so this again is a 3-phase change. This is a 3-phase process to get out of this behavior. I have to remind you, it's behavior change. That's most of the stuff that we're working on. And as I said, after I'm done, you got to deal with this stuff here. We're going to give you some tools to help you with this, but you're going to have to grow up because this is going to be the foundation of your recovery. When you grow up and grow out of being somebody, then you shift your identity because of this behavior change. You start living on purpose, and as a result of you living on purpose, what happens is the clown behavior goes away. Phase 1, stop the harmful habits, build better routines, track your progress and accountability, work on your emotional maturity for stage 2, heal your childhood wounds, learn how to have healthy relationships, and then get back to what you're here for. Everybody's got something that they're here for. So I think we're almost done for today. When you're speaking to somebody, that this is just something to take with you. Don't know why that was in there, but we're almost done. Change looks like this. That's what change looks like. It looks like discipline. It looks like effort, and it looks like growth. That's what it looks like. That's the price of freedom. Again, recover is where you pay for what you thought was free. You thought that porn was free. Oh, yeah, it's free. I don't have to pay for it. It doesn't cost me anything. Yeah. Well, again, your freedom ain't free. How you do it? It's beyond quitting. We don't do quitting. You get wiser. Get past your past triggers. You become more capable. Get emotionally stronger. See? Look at willpower. This is interesting. This analogy at the bottom that you can just barely see. That's like a power ball. A power bar, if you will. And look at willpower. It runs out. But look at skill set. It stays full. And so, again, as I said, willpower is a faulty tool to fix the experiment that you have been engaged with. Skill set is the only way that you can fix it. I didn't make up the rules, so I'm not really going to apologize, but I am going to say, them be the rules, man. So that's what it looked like. They used a bottle as the example, but, that's not what we're talking about. And this is the real shift. See, on the left, you see this guy who he wants the thing. He's fighting it out. He don't have no tools whatsoever. And his foundation is cracking. He's just fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. And again, man, you weren't meant to fight. So what happens because you're not meant to fight is eventually you fall. Freedom is when you have no desire for that which is in that box. And the chains get broken. And you're down a different road that's solid, that's beautiful, that's peaceful, that doesn't have any cracks in it. So the way that you do that is, again, awareness, stabilization, planning, and evolution. You don't decide at 10 o'clock what you're going to do tomorrow. You don't decide at 10 o'clock what you're going to do at 10 o'clock. You decide at 10 o'clock a.m. what you're going to do at 10 o'clock p.m. And you decide at 10 o'clock p.m. what you're going to do at 10 o'clock a.m. Does that make any sense? You plan before it comes. All right? You need to have new device boundaries, intentional use over mind scrolling. No more of that. You need to install protective barriers. Put a little safety on your Google, your YouTube search. If you need blockers, get blockers in addition. This, again, is just reminding you about your window of tolerance. It's small. This is one of the things working against you. Your hot zone is small. So I'm going to leave it right there. And we'll come back and we'll tackle some more of this. And I will talk to you on the backside.